Call this meeting to order. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. If you very well would stand, we'll have a moment of silence and then we'll do the pledge. All right, thank you. If you would join me in the pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, thank you, and welcome each of you for being here for this special joint work session for the Georgetown City Council and Scott County Fiscal Court. On the agenda for today is the presentation for the water supply assessment, and Chase will be doing that in a few minutes. We ask that later on it's following the agenda. There will be some time for some discussion and questions, and we'll try to move the mic down a little bit to do that. With that being said, make sure I don't have any other notes to take care of. All right, so if no other questions to be asked, or we'll move on as item number 2, presentation of the water supply assessment. Mr. Chase Alvarez, the general manager, of the Georgetown Municipal Water Sewers Service. Mr. Avizito.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Good afternoon. I'm pleased to have this opportunity to discuss, I think, what's a very important topic with this joint session of the council and the court. Mayor Jenkins, I appreciate you and Judge Covington pulling us all together tonight for the work session. This will be, so everybody's aware going into it, it's a work session, informational update, not requesting any actions of council, of some of our board that's joined us tonight. So in this meeting, I hope to bring you up to speed on a very important topic that previous boards of Georgetown Municipal, the current board and staff have been working on for some time, as we've had a lot of significant large projects over the last few years, the expansion of Plant 1, the South Sewer Extension. That whole time this has been going on. This really started probably back in 2020. And so what are we talking about is our long-term water supply assessment. So I'll start out just the question, why is this important to us? I think simply put, everyone here, through your own experience, whether through council position or court position, through customers or a board position, we all know that the availability of quality utility services provides for higher quality of life in a community. I don't think anybody will say that that's up for debate. So we see securing our water supply future as with the utmost importance as one of our top priorities. So if we can go forward one. If we look at other communities, I want to kind of take you across the nation, look at this from a nationwide perspective. You can see serious problems all across the country with water supply. And I want to start by saying clearly, we don't have, Georgetown and Scott County, we don't have a water shortage of any kind today. We're having this conversation so we're prepared for the future and we don't have to face a crisis at any point in the future. Next slide, kind of getting into these. If we look out west, we can see that there's numerous states, there's numerous communities that all source water from the Colorado River. And we can look at this situation for motivation as why we're here spending this time today. There's multiple states and communities that rely on the Colorado River, and they're dealing with long-term reductions in available surface water from that source. And the water planning in this region, it's now centered on managing that reduced supply. It's not, they've come to the realization that water levels in that supply of the Colorado River, it's not ever going to recharge the way to historic levels, the way they think that or it once did. So kind of one of our first of many problems. Next slide, please. We'll go to the southern part of the country. In Texas, water supply challenges are driven by prolonged drought, rapid population growth, and aging infrastructure. A few of those should sound familiar if you've listened to me talk. Cities such as Corpus Christi, they're operating under advanced drought directives, and even while they're continuing water supply projects, they're recognizing that conservation alone is not going to do the trick if they're going to continue to meet their customer demand. And if you look at some of the projects that are going on in Texas, the state lawmakers and local lawmakers, they're looking at investing billions of dollars into funding and maximizing strategies for water supply. Beyond conservation, they're talking about infrastructure renewal, so they are no longer looking at water loss, developing new supplies, expanding reuse, all in terms, all with the goal of long-term water supply reliability. As we go to Florida, another one that I think it draws parallels to Georgetown Municipal, groundwater levels. They source water from a underground aquifer similar to Georgetown Municipal, and the aquifer is reaching record low levels, so they're trying to figure out what their next move is. The temporary measures are not working there. So next slide, nationally, water supply challenges, they're tied to source water and infrastructure limitations. So aging systems, emerging contaminants in the source water, they're all affecting how utilities, not just Georgetown Municipal, can provide that water. And we don't want to end up in a situation like any of these communities, and this is just a snapshot of a few. Georgetown and Scott County, we have been and continue to be, as everybody knows, one of the fastest growing regions in Kentucky. Quality of life issues, whether it be housing, employment, recreation, education, economics, these issues are all impacted by community planning, and community planning is one of the biggest pillars of that is no doubt is water supply. So we're going to talk a little bit about our current source and our treatment methodology that have served this community well for a long time, and it's going to continue to do so. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about on your agenda is our current operating state. We know, though, that there will come a day that our current operating state is not going to be adequate to meet customer demand. So we're going to get into what we think will happen when we get to that point and how we can continue to supply our customer demand. It's incumbent on the people in this room, looking at the decision makers, board members, city council members, fiscal court members. We've got to have a plan for sustainable water, resilient supply, and it has to be affordable to the customer, the end user. So not looking at just what's best for today, but what's best for the future. And so kind of this will be our agenda. Start with kind of brief history. This was back in 2019, November of 2019, the city and fiscal court requested that Georgetown Municipal renew our previous assessments that had been done in the early 2000s. That was a reaction, in my opinion, from a couple of things that had happened. 2018 was a historically dry year, drought conditions in central Kentucky, followed by a historically wet year. So we had problems on the drinking water side in 2018, and then the sanitary sewer side in the year right after in 2019. So it's been a number of years that we agreed to bring this back to the forefront, get working on this. So we're excited to hear your feedback. I want to start off with an approach that makes this information make sense. So we need to start off with what do we want out of this? What is our goal for providing drinking water? And how will we use the correct criteria to make these decisions that are important to this community? So we're going to look at the current operating state. We're going to look at population projections that are going to help us plan for the future, how those population projections transition to water demand projections, and then the conclusions that will govern or guide those decisions. And then kind of get into our alternatives and our near-term actions and long-term actions. So that's kind of the intro. Any questions before we jump in? Okay. So goal of our assessment, if we want to advance one, as I said, identify long-term source water that best meets the needs of Georgetown municipal customers, both current and future. So I'm going to start off by saying our projections and our study period, they go through 2045. And we're looking at a solution, though, that goes, or we hope goes well beyond 2045. So let's say, and And we were presenting some of this in the last few years, but I was saying at that time, how much water are we going to need 20 years from now? So for 2045, we're into 2026, so that's really 19 years. But I think that we need to be prepared to handle an average daily demand of 10 million gallons per day and a peak or maximum day demand of 15 million gallons per day. Our current demand that we're seeing right now is 3.9 to 4, right around 4 million gallons of water per day that we're sending out to the system for our customers. Next slide, please. I said we were going to talk about our current state. A lot of folks don't know how we source our water and how much we can produce, so we're going to unpack that. Our water treatment plant located downtown on Water Street, where we source our raw water from Royal Spring. We can produce up to 4 million gallons per day of water for our customers. That number fluctuates. It's dependent on what Royal Spring produces. It's dry summer months, especially July, August, and tailing into September. We know that the spring doesn't produce enough water, raw water, for us to treat 4 million gallons of water per day. And so at those times, we supplement our water production with purchases of treated water from Frankfort Plant Board and Kentucky American. And if we consider minimal production at the water treatment plant in our current state, the maximum daily demand that we can satisfy for our customers is equal to what we can purchase from Frankfort Plant Board and Kentucky American Water Company through those connections respectively. Any questions there?
Chief,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. So the water that you're purchasing from either Frankfurt or Kentucky American, it's treated, but do you have to do anything else other than put it in the system? Or do you have to pass it through anything?
No, it's treated. We purchase treated water, treated when it gets to us, and we distribute that into the system and get that to our customers through our distribution network.
Got it, thank you.
And Chase, Kentucky American water comes from Ohio River, and Frankfurt comes from the Kentucky River, is that correct?
No, sir. Kentucky American also is sourced from the Kentucky River.
They both pull from both pools? Okay.
Yes.
Ohio and Kentucky River?
No, there's no Ohio River coming from Kentucky American.
Okay.
It's all different pools of the Kentucky River.
Chase, do you only get that water like when you need it, or do you have to pay to?
I'm going to touch on that in a few slides. If you'll give me a minute, I'll come back to that.
Chase, sorry. Council, if you can pass the mic down the table.
Sure.
Thank you.
And then fiscal court questions, make sure you press that microphone button. Sorry. That way we're on the right.
You want to repeat it?
Do it again.
So, if we can advance the slide. Okay, so Councilwoman Lesby Mitchell, so we purchase a minimum right now of 500,000 gallons a day from Frankfort Plant Board by contract. So we purchase that every day. That goes into our system and goes to our customers. And by contract through our current infrastructure, we can purchase up to 2.3 million gallons a day from Frankfort Plant Board. And that's based on the booster station that we share and the pipe diameter. That's outlined in our agreement with Frankfort Plant Board. So we can also purchase from Kentucky American. That is through 2 system connections that we use on an emergency basis. We can purchase an additional 2 million gallons of water from Kentucky American Water Company. So right now, if we needed the maximum demand that we could satisfy would be 4 from our treatment plant, 2.3 million gallons from Frankfort Plant Board, and 2 million gallons from Kentucky American, so just over 8 million gallons a day. And as I said, our current demand is just under or right at 4 million gallons per day. While we budget for purchases from Frankfort Plant Board and from Kentucky American, our rate structure is not based on long-term purchase at this moment from either of the other utilities. We produce water at our treatment plant at a much lower rate currently than what we can purchase it. And so while we do budget for those purchases every year, that is not a long-term not a long-term operating state if we needed to purchase that consistently every day of the year. Right now, our purchase agreement, we purchased from Frankfurt Plant Board at $3.53 per 1,000 gallon. Our treatment cost at the water plant is $1.28 per 1,000. So that gives you the range there. As we continue to treat at our water treatment plant, I will also point out that our capital improvement costs that we will incur in the future at the water treatment plant is only going to drive that number up. It's never going to go down, that $1.28 per 1,000. One of our next capital improvement projects that most utilities will be investing in is to be in compliance with the new federal regulation related to PFAS. We know that that project is coming. We don't know how much it's going to cost yet. We're going to be starting on that hopefully in this next month as far as going out for engineering services. But as we do projects like that or just infrastructure renewal projects at the water treatment plant, our cost of treatment is only going to go up from there, from that $1.28. We will combat those costs by continuing to pursue funding support for any improvements across our system, but especially at the water treatment plant, so we minimize the impact of to the rates for our customers. Any questions about our current state? Okay. So if we can go to the next slide. So let's start looking toward the future. Kind of how do we plan for the future? How do we plan for growth and development of our drinking water system? How do we evaluate these alternatives for the future? So we hear about projects all across Scott County and the region constantly, developments, whether it's mixed use, residential, commercial, retail, education, industrial. Heard about distilleries, RV parks, we've heard about them all. They're all going to drive population growth. And so we look at population projections. We went to Kentucky Data Center at the University of Louisville, and they provided us the census data going back to the year 2000. And then they provided us with population projections through the year 2040. And then our engineers did projections through the year 2045, which is our design year or our planning year. So if you look, the blue line on this graph, that top blue line is Scott County population. Then we look to the orange line, that is the Georgetown Municipal Service Area. And if you wonder why there's a difference in those two, you've got to keep in mind that Kentucky American Water Company serves part of the county on drinking water. So think anything east of the interstate of I-75, that is Kentucky American Service Area, and then anything west of the interstate, that is Georgetown Municipal Service Area. So that's the reason why those lines don't match up. There is a little bit of difference. Then you see the green line is City of Georgetown population. We think that the orange line, it correlates well, because if you look, if we can advance the slide, please. If we're looking at 2026, the population shows that we're just over 60,000, and we account for 3 to 4 people per customer. So if you divide that 60,000 divided by 4, you're at 15,000. That's right where our customer base lies. 15 to 16,000 is kind of where we pinged up and down most of the last year, but we're just under 16,000 right now. If we go then next. If you look out to 2045, what we need to be planning on is we need to be able to serve just over 100,000 customers less than 20 years from now. So that's kind of what we need to be planning for as a utility, as a city council, as a fiscal court. This is countywide. Keep in mind, these are projections. Past the current date, they're projections. I don't have the crystal ball. I can't predict the future. Growth could speed up. It could slow down. It's not up to me, but this is the best information we have, so this is what we have to base. I have a question back here.
When you break down the number of citizens that'll have to be served, clients that'll have to be served by GMWSS, do you all break that down in projected single-family homes, multi-unit dwellings, apartment complexes, commercial? Is that number broken down in there? Or how?
This is just population right now.
Just population, okay.
Mhm.
All right.
So I've got a question, maybe.
Yes, sir.
Kind of maybe similar to David's, but I think when you started, the prediction in 20 years is we'd need, is it 14, 16 million gallons per day? And we're-
10 million average day. And I'm going to come back to that, but
Okay.
tell me your question.
Well, no, just because of population, I was trying to do the math, and if the population doubles, we're doing more than double on the water, but it may be because of commercial properties or.
Let's go to the next slide.
Gotcha.
Calm down, Kelly.
I do my part.
Good segue. So this is how we go from population projection to water demand that we need to be able to have treated water for. And this might be the most important slide we're going to look at today. So we'll start with that purple line across the bottom, the horizontal line. And if you're looking at the axis there, that's a 4. That represents 4 million gallons per day. I do have my clicker here. I hope I don't blind anybody, but that's this line here. 4 million gallons per day. That is our treatment capacity at the water treatment plant. So then I said the next line is the green horizontal line going up to 6.3 million gallons. That is our operating state. If we add our treatment capacity plus what we can purchase, the 2.3 million gallons from Frankfurt Plant Board, and then the light blue horizontal line, I'm scared I'm going to blind somebody, so I'm going to try to limit my use here. The light blue line going across horizontally, that's 8.3. That's our highest operating state. 4 million gallons treated at our plant, 2.3 from Frankfurt Plant Board, and another 2 million from Kentucky American. So then we look at our two curved lines. We start with the dark blue line. That follows our Georgetown municipal population projection from the previous slide. And if we can advance that once, thank you. We see that the population projection, this is where the blue line is representing how that is, through the engineering analysis, how that translates to the demand that will result from those population projections. So we think that the low range demand, is what we're calling, comes from that population projection that gets us in 2045 to just over 100,000 people. That's going to result in a demand of 7.5 million gallons per day. We also wanted to look at a high range demand. We get 1 or 2 really big industries that came in for projects. Getting up above that it's not out of the realm of possibility by any stretch of the imagination. So we also looked at the orange curve line as more of a high range demand that gets us to a demand of 10 million gallons per day in 2045. And so I don't think we'll be to 10 million gallons, but I think we're going to be somewhere in between the 7.5 and 10. That's where my gut tells me we will be. So I don't think it's at all irresponsible for us to plan to have 10 million gallons a day of treated water in 20 more years. I think if we don't need it, that's fine. But I'd rather have it and not need it than the other way around. I don't want to be 20 years from now looking back and saying that we made a decision that didn't get us the water we needed when we're at the table today to make that right decision. So if we can advance the slide one. If we're looking at 2045 or 2025, so we'll call that current. We just ended 2025, and our average day demand for the year was right around 4 million gallons per day. This projection showing us at 4.6, so just a difference of 600,000 gallons per day. I'll call that pretty close. I'll call that a good data point. We can go to the next slide. If we're looking 5 years from now, I'm kind of showing by 2030, even if we use the high range demand, I think we can still serve that with our treated water plus what we can purchase from Frankfurt Plant Board. So I think we're still in good shape 4 to 5 years from now. We can advance one more. If we look 9, 10 years from now in 2035, you can see I'm sorry, I'll first go to the blue line right here. we would still be okay on that low-range projection 9 years out, 10 years out, if we hit that population and projection and resulting demand. We'd be at 5.8 million gallons per day. We could still handle that at our current treatment plant level, plus what we can purchase from Frankfurt Plant Board. Now, if we get to the high-range demand 10 years from now, not only will we need what we purchase from Frankfurt Plant Board, we're going to need that water from Kentucky American as well. So we will be exceeding at least that green line that represents what we purchase from Frankfurt Plant Board. Any questions here? Mr. Corman, did that? Okay.
Question. Is there any opportunity to buy more water from Frankfurt, Kentucky American, or are you limited? Like, your projections are saying, based off of today's contracts, 8.3 is what we can do, Georgetown, Frankfurt, Kentucky American. But is there more opportunity for more water?
Yes.
Long-term? Okay.
Yes. This is based on our current pipe diameter. Or that's the easiest way I can say it, the current pipe size. I think that, one, Frankfurt Plant Board and Kentucky American, I think they will both sell us all the water that we can buy. And I think that we can upgrade our connections with Frankfurt Plant Board and Kentucky American relatively easily. That's not a landmark, hundreds of $1 million effort. That's something that we can do over time, is upgrade those connections, add parallel transmission mains, things of that nature that I think we can do. And said, I think that they will sell us all the water that we can use, and we're going to talk about that in the second part of the presentation. Other questions right here? Yes, sir.
So do you only buy from one or the other, or are you buying from both Georgetown and, Frankfurt Plant Board and Kentucky American?
It's a good question. We buy daily from Frankfurt Plant Board. We purchase from Kentucky American in emergency situations. Based on the rate, Frankfurt Plant Board is much cheaper.
Gotcha.
How often have we ever had to do both? Would it have been a drought time or something like that?
In 2018, we bought a lot of water from both Frankfurt Plant Board and Kentucky American. I know that 2018, we far exceeded our budgeted purchases. And we're talking about specific times of year.
Most of the time, you're staying under that 500,000 minimum, right? I mean, that's kind of your.
No, we've got to purchase the 500.
No matter what, right?
But
does
yes.
that usually carry you forward every year? That 500,000?
Yes.
Right.
Right now it does.
Yeah.
We're contractually obligated.
Yes, sir.
Right. It's like use it or lose it type. You're
Yes.
paying for it. You might as well use it.
You're paying for it either way by
Right.
contract, and I'm going to talk about that
Right.
a little bit later. We can go to the next, advance one more. Yep. Okay, this is kind of the same thing, but instead of it graphically, I've just got it represented here with numbers. Our long-range projection for 2045, we go out to 7.5 million gallons, and our high-range projection, we go out to the 10 million gallons. I've added something on both columns, though. In sizing, in planning for, permitting, designing, and constructing water infrastructure, whether that's treatment, pipelines, elevated storage tanks, booster stations. Not only do you design for your average day demand, you also have to account for your maximum daily demand, and that's just defined as 1.5 times your average day demand. So not only do we need to be able to, if we had that high range projection, not only do we need to have an average day demand satisfy 10 million gallons, we've also got to be able to satisfy maximum daily demand there of 15 million gallons per day. So
Chase, on that, like who decides that? Like that you have to do that?
That comes from just,
Is that just
Alan,
best
is
practice?
that 10 state standards for engineering?
That's for engineering practices.
Okay.
Thank you. Alan's our capital projects
Yeah.
manager, so put him on the spot. Any other questions here? Okay. Next slide, please. So let's get into the alternatives, as we said, kind of can we buy more? And so we've looked at a number of scenarios, and I was asked to switch the order in which I did this when I presented this to the board. And we're going to start out backwards. I'm going to tell you about things that we've looked at that are not going to work. Just so we take those off the table right off the top. You don't have to think about asking me a question later about them. But we looked at a number of sources, and this includes the long-discussed Scott County Reservoir. We also looked at the South Elkhorn Creek. Neither of those sources could provide the volume of water that we need as part of a long-term solution. Going to the reservoir, problematic for two reasons. One, Army Corps of Engineer, they permit impoundments and they regulate those. Corps of Engineer, I think, has been approached multiple times over the years, if not decades, by multiple judge executives. Judge Covington and I had those conversations as well a few years back, and the Corps of Engineers has repeatedly told us that an impoundment in Scott County is likely not going to happen.
Well, I can take it, like, I've had conversations with the Army Corps of Engineers myself as recently as a couple of years ago, and their statement to me is an impoundment is not the least environmentally impactful option. Thus, it is not an option. And that is my firsthand conversation with them, and trying to do our due diligence to look at every option. So I would agree, that is not an option.
I think we all wish it was. I think it was a great idea back when the land was purchased, but I think the other part on the Scott County Reservoir is that I've read some older reports that showed that the design year for that project, that reservoir, the volume that it would produce would satisfy demand for the year 2019. So we're already 5-6 years past the design year for that project. The Elkhorn Creek, problems related to both water volume and water quality. I think the water quality there is not of a nature that we would want to base our long-term water supply needs on. We also analyzed combinations of sources through multi-party, maybe regional partnerships, and unfortunately, those alternatives yielded little interest. We did have some discussions with Louisville Water Company and Frankfurt Plant Board and Georgetown Municipal about possibility of a 3-utility partnership, and it just, those partnerships, those discussions, unfortunately, just didn't yield anything that we thought was feasible to pursue. We've also talked to regulatory authorities about reuse, water reuse. We're building a brand new wastewater plant that's going to have effluent that's never going to stop. You can take that water, that treated wastewater, and then treat it to drinking water standards. That's a source that's never going to dry up. And but unfortunately, direct potable reuse is not permitted in Kentucky. I've talked to multiple division directors at Division of Water, and they've just told me, you've got other options you can use. I don't see that happening. That's very popular, drought-stricken states. You're seeing that become very common in California, Texas, Nevada, Arizona. I don't see that coming here as an option to us anytime soon. So that's a shame, but I just don't see that as something that we can count on.
Hey, Chase?
Yes, sir.
Before you leave that, did you say direct potable water reuse is what they're against? Because ultimately, we're downstream from somebody that's,
Yes, sir.
packaged treatment plant is hitting the Kentucky River
That's correct.
at either pool.
It's monitored by what's called the 5-mile rule. You have to be 5 miles down from a wastewater discharge to put a drinking water intake. Is that correct, Alan? Putting you on the spot again? 5-mile rule. I think even where it is permitted in parts of the country where this is becoming more popular, it's still not permitted as direct potable reuse. It's indirect, meaning they take wastewater plant effluent, they inject that into some kind of aquifer, and then there's mixing, there's dilution, and then they pull that back out for treatment. You're talking about a lot of money in treatment. Still, I didn't get anywhere with regulatory authorities on that, so we kind of just said we've got to take that one off the table if we're going to move forward.
Just out of curiosity, what's an average daily volume that would be available if that was an option?
Well, right now, we're probably right around 4 million gallons a day at the wastewater plant. I think we're a little under that.
Chase, let me wait for the microphone to come this way, and I'll ask my question. Question I have is, what about coming out of Grant County that gets it from Carrollton?
Grant County, I'm going to cover that.
Okay.
If you'll give me a few minutes. So, coming from the north. We'll get there. Any other questions on what's not going to work? Okay. I'm going to jump in and give you the overview of our alternatives that we've looked at, that we've given more time and effort to vetting. And the first one we're calling Alternative A, and that is we would be building a new.
So sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. If it's going to happen, it happens to me in church. So, Alternative A is we would build a new water treatment plant for Georgetown Municipal, and we would source raw water from the Kentucky River. Alternative B, we would continue to treat at our current water treatment plant, and then we would purchase anything above our 4 million gallons a day based on demand. We would purchase that from Frankfurt Plant Board. Alternative C, that is similar to Alternative B. We would keep operating our water treatment plant. As demand grows, all of our excess would be purchased from Kentucky American Water Company. And then Alternative D is we would purchase all of our water from the Louisville Water Company via a transmission pipeline from their service area to ours.
When you say
also,
when you say 2 hours, what's that mean? 2
from
hours?
there's 2 hours from.
From there's 2 hours?
Yes,
Okay, I
from
thought you were
there's
saying
2
2 hours.
Yes, TO.
Sorry.
Sorry.
That makes sense.
We have also, Mr. Stone, we've also started on a preliminary basis looked at a second Ohio River option with partnering possibly with utilities in the I-75, I'll say North Corridor. Ultimately, I believe the supplier there would have to be Northern Kentucky Water District. I don't know that there's others in between there that would have the capacity. However, I think between Northern Kentucky Water District service area and the Georgetown Municipal Water Service area, I do believe there are multiple communities or utilities that have a need for additional water like we do. So it's a longer distance, but there's possibly more users that would could be positively impacted. So we didn't really get into that alternative as deep as the other ones, but some folks have asked us to look into that, so we're doing that now.
Hey, Chase, but the Louisville line is there, right?
No, it is not.
It's not there, so,
Louisville's, they have a line to eastern Shelby County.
okay.
Chase, have you tied numbers into any of these, all these alternatives?
Coming up.
All right.
Next slide, please.
Y'all just let him talk.
Leave him alone.
I like it. We're eager. So kind of getting more down into the weeds on all of the 4 alternatives. Alternative A, as I said, that was a new raw water pump station on Pool 3 of the Kentucky River. Would involve a new 18-mile transmission main into Scott County, where we would build a new water treatment plant. The existing water treatment plant would be phased out of service over time. We would own and operate the plant. And getting into the costs, initial capital costs, and this was in 2022 dollars, we were looking at more than $200 million for the river intake, the transmission main, and the new treatment plant. For the present worth analysis over a 20-year period, so total cost of ownership of those assets, you're looking at more than $320 million, and those estimates were done in the year 2022. When I told the board, when I presented this to the board, I looked at Peter over there with the news graphic and said, do not go quoting me that I think this is what we should do. I'm saying this is an option. This is one thing we looked at. I will say that it has good and bad with it. The good being that this community has local control over its water resources, its water future. However, this would require easement acquisition that I don't really even want to think about, and I don't think that there's a possible way that I could or the board would support a rate structure that could fund this type of investment. It's just not possible. So we did have. It's one option, but I'm not saying it's the right option. I'm not saying it's perfect, but
You,
okay. I said, I think that this is ideal, but not for the cost, and I don't even think there's any way to chase funding to make this even remotely feasible. But it is something that we had to look at for purposes of what we could do to continue to treat our own water. So that's kind of the good and bad with alternative A of ultimately a new treatment plant for Georgetown Municipal. Any other questions on that one?
Just for fun, if there were to be funding available federally or something like that in the future, how often does a line like that have to be replaced? What is the lifespan of that line?
We depreciate assets on a 30-year cycle, but generally they're operated much, much longer than that.
And when you say much, much longer, 40, 50?
I mean, we've got lines, I'd say, older than 50 years in our system. Okay, let's go to the next alternative. This is where we would continue to purchase or treat our own water up to 4 million gallons per day, and then we would purchase water from Frankfurt Plant Board for anything that exceeded that demand, and then we would operate our treatment plant for the amount of time it took for the math to work out that our treatment costs would exceed the cost of purchasing water, all of our water from Frankfurt Plant Board. Based on the current cost for us to treat water, even knowing that we've got capital improvements coming at the water treatment plant, I think that we will be operating our water treatment plant here in downtown Georgetown for a number of years. I don't see that going away anytime soon, just based on the simple math of how efficiently we're able to treat water. Like I said, I know we've got capital improvements that are going to change that math, but we can do a lot of work before we catch up to those rates. So we would purchase additional water. We currently, they pump water through a 16-inch transmission main between the Frankfurt Plant Board service area, the Georgetown Municipal service area. At some point in the future, based on demand, we would have to upgrade that to at least a 24-inch main. And I can distribute these slides, and it kind of shows the pipe diameters for the different sections that would need to be upgraded. I think that, most of our water over the years as we purchase more is going to be sourced from the Kentucky River. I think Frankfurt Plant Board, they have excess capacity at their water treatment plant. I believe they're, based on the last time I spoke with them kind of on this subject and based on kind of the information they've shared, their current demand is around 7 million gallons per day, and I believe they have the ability to treat up to 17 million gallons per day. 18? Okay, 18. So they have quite a bit of treatment capacity. The challenge with this alternative is over time, based on the demand, is when we would have to upgrade the transmission infrastructure. And I think that Frankfurt Plant Board would be willing to, we would go to them and say, we want to share those infrastructure costs, and would they do that with some sort of negotiation based on the terms of a long-term purchase contract, and I'm talking 25 years or more. If they know they're going to have that customer, they're going to be more willing to leverage capital to help us in our system and the transmission main between the two systems. So.
Do they sell to anyone else? Do they sell to anyone
I'm looking,
else?
yes, they do. I'm looking at a Frankfurt Plant Board representative that I know and putting them on the spot.
I'm representative, I'm a Georgetown resident.
Okay. Yes, they do.
So even with selling to other folks, we still have enough buying from them?
I think they've got quite a bit of treatment capacity, and it's really just a thing of looking at the transmission main, and that would only serve us.
Chase, like the 16 to 24-inch switch, is that a lot? Like, I can't really tell from the map. Like,
It's a significant amount of water, and then, I mean, if we
like
get.
how many miles are we talking of
Do
that?
you remember that off the top of your?
I mean, just kind of guesstimate.
10.2.
Good job.
We're about 9 miles,
That's why we want him to move.
So,
55,000 feet.
What is it?
55,000 feet, around 9 miles.
pretty good, Milo.
Alan, could I ask, you know,
55,000 feet, you know it out.
we have existing line now, but on the map, it looks like it changes to red as it kind of turns into Scott County, comes down Paynes Depot. Is that correct, Chase?
That's correct, and what that's getting into is the red portion here. This is what we're getting into when we're talking about our south side tank and distribution system improvements that Magistrate Wallace is going to ask me about a little bit later.
But what's the approximate length? What's the approximate length of that section?
I don't know the answer to that.
About 3 miles. You do the math. Thanks, Chase.
Yes, sir. So again, a long-term purchase agreement, that is where we can possibly get Frankfurt Plant Board to work with us as a partner to make these infrastructure upgrades. It's not a capital investment that we've got to make 100% to us. They recover that capital investment through their rate in the long-term purchase agreement that we would establish with Georgetown Municipal.
So Chase, are they willing to build lines into Scott County? I know they already come to Midway, I believe.
That's what we've been talking about, and we're going to talk more about that too.
Okay.
Okay. We'll go to the next slide. This is the deeper dive into alternative C, and this is, as I said, same thing, but the end user or the wholesale water supply partner would be Kentucky American Water Company. So we would continue, operate our water treatment plant, and then we would buy anything over the 4 million gallons per day from Kentucky American. I think with this option, we'd be operating our water plant in perpetuity because I don't think that our treatment cost is ever going to catch up to Kentucky American's rate. I think that this would end up possibly with, again, a long-term purchase agreement with Kentucky American Water Company. I think that's a little bit different in terms that Kentucky American, we'd be partnering with a private for-profit company, and the control of the rates would really be solely at the PSC. So any questions on this alternative? Still sourcing from the Kentucky.
So with that means that most of the cost of this option is going to be on the residents, right? And the rates that they're going to have to eat, right?
I'll say yes.
Just, it's almost has to, right? Yeah.
Okay. Next slide, please. So I'm going to explain this alternative so you can see that we did a lot of work here. However, I'm going to point out at the beginning that this is our Louisville Water Company Ohio River option that Louisville Water has informed us they've withdrawn themselves from consideration in becoming a long-term partner, wholesale water supply partner with Georgetown Municipal. So I'm still going to talk about it so you know what we looked at, but I'll just say that up front that they did. You'll hear about this later when we get into our procurement process. They did withdraw. So alternative D is what we call this. It involved a 42-mile transmission main from the eastern half of Shelby County all the way into Scott County. The main would be constructed, owned, and operated by Louisville Water Company. Water would be sourced from the Ohio River aquifer, and the cost of the transmission main, similar to the previous two alternatives, that would be borne by the wholesale water supplier, and then they would recover that cost through the rate to Georgetown Municipal, all governed by a long-term purchase agreement.
Why did they back out?
The letter they sent me it didn't have that much information. I think depending on who you talk to, I've talked to the president of Louisville Water about it. He gave me some information. Let's just say they've withdrawn. So as you saw kind of and gasped with alternative A, the downside is that initial capital investment. It's impossible to overcome. I'm going to point out with alternatives B, C, and D, the downside ultimately is locally we are losing control of our rate structure. We can negotiate, but ultimately the water source is not in Georgetown and Scott County, so if we're purchasing from a wholesale water supplier, as best we can negotiate, though, we're locked into their rate structure, not our own that's approved by this council. So, any questions on kind of the 4 primary alternatives? So next slide. Information kind of that we've gone over. That's a 30,000-foot, very quick overview of a lot of 5 years worth of work. And so at this point, I presented this to the board first back in July of 2024, and our next step at that time was, which is complete at this time, was we wanted to extend our current purchase agreement with Frankfurt Plant Board, and that has been completed. That was done in September of 2024. We executed a 4th amendment with Frankfurt Plant Board, and that extends that purchase agreement through 2034. With this agreement, we had always paid their standard rate, but by increasing our minimum purchase from $250,000 gallons a day to 500,000 gallons a day, our purchase rate went from $3.94 per thousand down to $3.53 per thousand. So that step was already complete, and I believe based on our projections for population, our projections for demand, I believe this amendment serves us well in terms of, at the time it was executed, 10 more years of service partnership with Frankfurt Plant Board. Any questions? Okay, next slide. So related to kind of long, oh, go ahead.
If you entered into an agreement for a long-term purchase with Frankfurt Plant Board, could that current standing agreement be amended?
I believe, and I'm
For a savings for.
I'm not speaking for Frankfurt Plant Board, but I think if they were going to get an extended term, yes, they're gonna look to help us with renegotiating Amendment 4. Then I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah.
So related to kind of what's past 10 years, what's past 2034, we felt the next steps had to be to conduct a RFP, or request for proposal process, for wholesale water supply. So as of July of 24, we conducted preliminary discussions with Frankfurt Plant Board, Louisville Water, a little bit Kentucky American, about what a long-term partnership would look like. And that includes infrastructure cost and investment. That includes term of the agreement, the cost sharing, pursuit of funding, all of those things that could factor into a long-term purchasing agreement. That was all done, as I said, preliminary, just kind of what's actually feasible. But we kind of felt like we needed to, in order to zero in on what a partnership would actually look like, we needed to go through an official procurement process. So we developed an RFP for long-term water supply, and we sent that out to Frankfurt Plant Board, Louisville Water, Kentucky American, Northern Kentucky Water District, and also Versailles Municipal Utilities, because Versailles has, we know that Versailles actually has quite a bit of excess treatment capacity. However, there's no transmission main between Georgetown and Versailles, but we sent it to them as well. And this served as our official procurement process. Go to the next slide. It was established, and it was, as we said, from a legal standpoint, it was followed in order to meet those state procurement protocols. We didn't feel that sole sourcing, just going to one utility and negotiating directly, we didn't really feel like that was, for this magnitude of contract, that was going to be the smartest way to do this. So we did go through we're in this current process right now. RFP was, it did have our official proposal guidelines and instructions from the wholesale water supply utilities, and it was based on, if we go to the next slide, it was based on both our low range and our high range average day demand and maximum day demand. So same thing, this came right out of our RFP for 2045. We had the 7.5 million gallons for our low range projection with the maximum day demand, and the 10 million gallons per day with the maximum daily demand of 15 million gallons. So the wholesale water suppliers had to propose on how they would meet both our low range and our high range needs. What infrastructure would be involved and how much it would cost. So next slide. We requested information on projected capacity, guaranteed capacity. We requested information on any potential limitations. What would be their limitations to supply Georgetown under drought condition? Or if they, we had the question earlier, if they had other customers, would there be a priority list? So we asked for all those things, and that's kind of in the existing commitments of treated water to others. So we asked about all of those things in this RFP process. Next slide. Probably most importantly, we asked about their proposed billing and rate structure for wholesale water supply and purchase by us, and the methodology for future rate increases that they use. And they'd also have to disclose the capital investments that they would be proposing, the cost of those capital investments in order to serve us and meet these demands that we'd established. So we would at least know what their rates are going to be based on the capital investments that, that we're going to be put in the ground that would serve us, help serve our customers with water. Next slide. We required all of the wholesale water suppliers to submit a base proposal for the same point of delivery to, so everybody was, anybody that's proposing had to submit a base proposal to one central point of delivery in our service system. So at least we had a base to go off of when scoring these proposals. Everybody had to get the water to the same point that we could accept the water in a optimal area of our system, and that it was hydraulically advantageous to us. We don't want to accept millions of gallons of water in a part of our treatment, in the part of our distribution network that only has 4-inch lines. And we're going to have to, that's not going to work. So we had to pick an area, we did that, and that's what their base proposal had to be based on. Then we allowed them to propose alternate proposals. And that way, Frankfurt Plant Board, where they have their closest infrastructure, they could leverage that with probably a better proposal. Kentucky American could do the same. So we let the wholesale water suppliers do either one, they had to do both. But it gave us an even comparison to one part of our system, and also gave them the opportunity to give us their lowest cost methodology for serving us. Next slide, please. We issued the RFI, which was kind of the first step of the RFP. It was just requesting information if they were interested or not. We did that in September of last year, and then we sent out the official RFP on October 17th of last year. And as I said, we sent it to Northern Kentucky Water, Kentucky American, Louisville Water Company, Frankfurt Plant Board, and Versailles Municipal Utilities. Next slide, please. We received back Frankfurt Plant Board. We received these on November 21st of last year. Frankfurt Plant Board submitted one base proposal, 2 alternates. Kentucky American, 1 base proposal, 1 alternate. Northern Kentucky Water, 1 base proposal. As you can see, is what I said, Louisville Water, they did not propose, and we received no response from Versailles Municipal Utilities. So that brings us to the present on the next slide. What are our next steps now? So we, at the staff level, we've begun diving into all of these proposals, all this data that we've received, and we've kind of developed a whole new set of next steps. And so the staff, as I said, we've begun reviewing those. We have, we think at minimum, next step, we will be requesting additional information on the proposals from specific wholesale water suppliers where we've reviewed, we have questions. The Georgetown Municipal Water and Sewer Service Board, they have selected 2 members to work with staff on a preliminary scoring committee. That's not that the staff and these 2 members are going to be making this decision for this community. This is just a preliminary review so they can set direction on what information do we think is the best, who's scored the highest that we think we should go to the entire board, to the city council, fiscal court. I do believe that this is a decision that won't be made in a vacuum, that we've got to have input, as you can see how important it is and how difficult of a decision this is going to be. So that's kind of the work that we have set before us, and we look to get started on kind of the scoring with the scoring committee as soon as possible.
In your RFP and your RFI, how long are these proposals required to be valid.
What did we put in? We put, Alan, did we put 6 or 12 months in there? I think we said 12 months. Chris, do you remember? We gave ourselves quite a bit of time that they had to
Good, 'cause
hold.
6
They had to
months is
hold.
almost over.
They had to hold their proposal,
So
so
12 months?
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
I'll check on that and-
Okay.
and send that out.
All right, thank you.
And then my question, and would ask for consideration, is did any of the process allow for the successful bidder to work with the city and the county and state and federal representatives to essentially try to give us an opportunity to get funding from the state and federal level to help offset the cost for the project?
I think in any direction we wanted to go, I think any of the wholesale suppliers would be very eager to work with us in order to leverage all funding opportunities. I just don't know of a way that we could have included that and scored that effectively in an RFP process. I think that-
My question is, if it was done as an alternate that led and gave bidders the opportunity to bid on an alternate, that, you know, here's a proposal, but the alternate would allow for a 24-month period for the elected bodies to work to try to leverage federal and state dollars. If we were unsuccessful, then it's still that, you know, that original proposal would stand and you'd move forward with that successful bidder. Could you structure that like that through an alternate?
I don't think any contractor's going to do that, or any company, because it's, 2 years out, things change so much for any company or any contractor on their cost.
But as we are now and today, there is no opportunity for leveraging any federal or state dollars. And there's got to be a way
Just to give yourself time to
to give
go
us,
after it.
to give us time to work collaboratively.
I just can't see anybody putting themselves out there that long. I mean, that's a long
You can,
time.
you can build into a bid what you would see as growth
I guess you could have
and
a
cost.
fall back to whatever.
And growth and costs. I mean, there's no perfect
Yeah.
opportunity, but that would be a question that I have as you go through looking at the proposals.
The longer you go out, the higher the price is going to be up front.
It's never going to be cheaper than
Right,
it
you
is
mean?
today.
Like, it just
But,
is.
but I do know that, and tell me if I'm correct, that the proposals that stand today do not allow for us to try to leverage, you know, like a successful bidder couldn't say, they couldn't leverage any federal or state dollars to help reduce the cost.
The current proposals are not, they don't have a basis.
They don't have that basis.
They aren't, that doesn't mean that it can't happen.
Yeah.
It just means that their current proposal is not based on X number of dollars of funding being awarded to the, if it's a wholesale, a regional partnership of some kind where there's infrastructure investment, there's not, those numbers are not based on an allocation of funding from a funding source currently.
Is there a way to, like, have that broken down to where we could then go after that for those specific costs of, especially the infrastructure part, that people are going to add and then charge us?
I don't know exactly. I'll say this is the mayor, his staff, the judge, Georgetown Municipal, to say that we haven't looked at and talked to funding
Right.
agencies, elected representatives at the state, at the federal level, we've done that. They've pretty much said, we've got to know what you're going to build or who you're going to partner with
Right.
before we can pledge money. I get where the importance of what the judge is saying is, it would be nice if there was a way that we could somehow have included in the RFP process and the scoring criteria, the ability to leverage some funding or leverage funding for an alternative. Like I said, I don't know how that's done.
Yeah.
And we worked very hard on the RFP. I'm not saying it's perfect. I will say, just based on my review, I've read through all the proposals. Right now, there's not one of them that's on the table that I would recommend. I think at minimum, we've got to go start negotiating because there's not one that is acceptable in its current form. If we went to the negotiating and we can't get to a place where we feel comfortable bringing a proposal to council that we think is feasible to get us the water we need at an affordable rate, then we're going to have to throw out the proposals and start over. We can't agree to something that we can't afford or that's not going to get us the water we need. So I think that we've got to look at the proposals, possibly start reaching out to the ones that we feel like are most feasible, and see if those discussions yield anything productive. If not, then we've got to reject them all like we would any other type of bid where we don't think we've got responsive bids. We throw them out and we start over, and maybe there's something we can look at that we could potentially find that mechanism to include leveraging funding opportunities. Like I said, in this part, we did try. I just don't know how that's done. I'm not saying that we were exhaustive. I just didn't know how to do it. So,
Chase, oh, I'm sorry.
So it would seem to me, based on what you're saying, Joe Pat, that perhaps in getting the bids, the proposals, it's not there, but once we decided on someone and we wrote an agreement, a contract, that we could put different options in the contract. Say we get funding for $5 million for something. You know, it's, once we pick somebody, then it's included before you sign a contract. But it is impossible to know at the front end. But before you, would that work?
Well, my question is, you know, would other options be available, and would other entities made a bid if the ability to try to leverage federal and state dollars were an option on the front end instead of, you know, not being there on the front side?
So you're saying if folks out there knew that there was a possibility that it was going to be funded by federal dollars, that you might have more takers or more agreeable numbers, or they're
I
not
think that's
as likely because there's less risk to them maybe because of the infrastructure.
But I think the cart is before the horse. I think you can go after funding because there are often times that funding is available and it is inserted into that budget, and you may not do the project for 3 years. And you don't have to have the project in whole to get the funding. And you know this from being in the school system. There are school districts that say, we want an ATC. They don't know exactly how much it's going to cost. They haven't bid it out. They haven't thoroughly, completely designed it yet, but they go to Frankfurt and they get $16 million to go towards their project. That is completely opposite of what we're talking about right now. What you're saying is you've got to have it all or partly, mostly wrapped up before we can go after funding, which is not true.
I think that we would at least need some bit of an idea of some bit of a direction. I don't think we need a detailed
What do
design.
you mean by direction?
Like, which way does the city county want to go?
I still,
Frankfurt or
but
Louisville
if
or
you think
whatever,
if Frankfurt
right?
is the best option, then at that point, you bond with Frankfurt, you bond with the plant board and GMWSS and city council and fiscal court. And does the plant board, do they have any governance, or does Frankfurt have any governance over the plant board?
Say that again?
Does the city of Frankfurt have any governance over the plant board like we do here with GMWSS?
They just appoint our board.
They just appoint the board. They don't vote on anything in council okay. But you can pick a partner based on these things and then say,
Yes,
this
I
is-
agree with you there.
But,
I
I mean, you
agree.
don't have to have a project down the line before you can go after funding.
I agree with you there. I think that what we've heard back is we'd have to at least get to the pick a partner point.
But I think at the point of the, I still disagree with that, because you have a range of project costs. And that's what you can do, is say, because they're not gonna fully fund it probably
No.
at the state level or the federal, but that's when you pick a dollar on what is affordable to ask for from the state and from the federal. And you don't have to have a fully cost of what it's going to be, because
But
you
you might have
never
to
know
have,
what the true cost is going to be.
but you might have to have a who that you're going to go with before you ask.
But you still can't put it out to bid.
Well, I didn't say
You
that.
know,
I'm just
I
saying you
mean,
got to have a who, probably.
I don't know that you can have a who, because when you do an ATC,
That's kinda
you don't
silly.
know who your CM might be or your GC. You may choose that down the line. So there's your who on who's building it and all that stuff. So
But if you
I-
have who, could they help?
absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
if it's whatever, Frankfurt, Louisville, you got an entity with you and a
But
partner.
we're in a budget year, so you're looking 2 years out.
that's right.
Because if it's not in there
At the-
now,
at the
if
minimum.
it's
At
not
the
in there by
minimum,
April
yeah.
10th, it's
But-
2 years out.
But here's, I'll go back to what you said. We are not in, by any means, in any type of water supply concern at this time. We are trying to be proactive, and we are trying to look down the road to supply what is needed in the future for our community.
Well stated.
So before we enter into a long-term agreement, I will go back to say, trying to leverage federal and state dollars to make sure that those dollars give our ratepayers the lowest option that's available as a starting point. And I know you've got to go through this process, formalize the scoring, and then make a recommendation. But just me as Joe Pat Covington, Judge Executive, working with the Fiscal Court, wanting to partner and collaborate, because we understand, we've talked about this for several years. This has to be a collaborative effort in my mind.
Absolutely.
And,
Well,
you know,
you
you
don't
got-
know what you've done, we don't know. I mean, there's no real knowledge, just guesstimates. So, I mean, going through the process gives us some more concrete information to, longer term.
Councilmember Amber.
I think that being visionary at this point is critical. We don't know what the climate's going to be like. We could have 3 years in a row of drought. I think obviously, we're not in a crisis situation. I'm thankful for that. But we need to be proactive, and I appreciate all this information. This ultimately, I have a lot of relatives in the West. It's water wars out there. This ultimately becomes very political, very power structure heavy. A lot of things with Louisville just shutting down is a bit of a red flag. I don't think we've gotten easy answers from that, maybe never will. I'm curious, Lexington doesn't have a lot of water, and that's one reason why they were never made the capital of the state, from what I've heard. How are they approaching this, since we've not mentioned much about Lexington? And maybe we could leverage something with them at some point, I don't know.
I believe Lexington, I mean, they're served by Kentucky American, and I believe they're served from 2 sources, as 2 different pools of the Kentucky River.
Okay.
And that's their only option. That's what their options are. And
Yeah.
if we were to partner with Kentucky American, that
As
would
well.
be yet another concern of mine
Yeah.
with that alternative is, from those 2 pools and those transmission mains, there's only so much water there.
Exactly.
And
So that's
along
what I'm
those
worried about the
lines,
Ohio
Ms. Hambrick, back to what Todd mentioned earlier, we've talked about it as well, like, is there an option from the north
Right.
that would consider Ohio River source water just along the thought process of the Louisville water coming from the west?
Yeah.
So,
Judge, can I
yes, sir.
expand on that a little bit?
Oh, yes, sir.
When we started this effort, at that time, it was Mayor Prather and Judge Covington saying, we don't care what you look at, but you're going to look at, we're going to have at least one Ohio River option to consider in this exercise. And so if you look at where Louisville Water was with their service area, the eastern edge of Shelby County to Scott County, and then you look at, we talked about going up toward Grant County or Northern Kentucky Water District, the distance in mileage is drastically different. Alan, can you refresh my memory, the difference between the two? We're talking 42 miles to get to Louisville and over 55, because you're not just getting Northern Kentucky Water's service area, you're getting into that service area to a pipe that has the water that could actually send that volume our way. So just the sheer linear footage, we said we can't look to Northern Kentucky Water. However, if you're looking between us and Louisville Water service area, in between, there's really no other customers that benefit off that infrastructure. What we're learning today is in the I-75 corridor, there are other utilities that could benefit. Now, that's a whole nother negotiating with multiple utilities in that corridor on a pipeline and setting up how you govern that. Wow, that you talk about a lofty goal, but that might be, if you've got more parties at the table, you overcome that cost of more linear footage if we want an Ohio River option. And we've actually had some folks at the state leadership level that have asked us to get more in-depth on that option.
Chase, since the Louisville option has pulled out, it's another 15 miles of water line, and you've got at least 1-2 different districts that would, pony into that. So, the Northern Kentucky route may be, plus, what we experienced in 2018 with, and Brandon will tell you the same thing, with the drought and the water level went so bad and people complained not only in Georgetown but in Frankfort about the water quality. When's the last time the Ohio River stopped or went desperately low? So,
I've talked about that, and yes,
Okay, Chase, I know we're on a limited time here, so we need to move it along here. I think, are you really done with next steps?
I'm done
So
if
you're
you
not
want to.
done with next steps, discussion and questions from city council and on fiscal, I think we've done some of those. So is there any more questions from the council or fiscal court?
I just want to say thank you, Chase. This is very informative. That's amazing.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I hadn't checked my email today. Are we going to get a copy of that, or have we
Yes,
already?
we can distribute a copy of
Okay.
that.
Again, yes, thank you, Chase, for your due diligence on getting this done and presenting this council. This is the second time I've heard this, and it's a lot of things need to be done with this, and I'm glad you're taking the forefront on this. At this time, I'll allow for item 3, which will be some public comments. I'm going to give you 4 minutes for each one of them wants to come up. If you would, pronounce your name or give your name for the record, and you will get 4 minutes in which you can come in and if you want to comment. Anybody in the audience?
You sure? Yeah. I was gonna say you can go first from here. Hi, my name's Emily Thompson. We moved to Georgetown, this will be our 2nd year here. And it's been great, fine. We are now having an issue, which is funny that's here, with the water at our house. So, and I brought our bill from, this says 5, but I have pictures of the other one. So the most water we have ever used since we've lived in this house, we live over in Mount Vernon, near the hospital. The most water we've ever used was January to February of 25. We used 3,380 gallons of water. Last month, we used 2,380 gallons of water, And now we got a bill yesterday in my email for 10,350 gallons of water used. It is me, my significant other, and a 2-year-old. There's no way. We got a bill. Our bill is usually $75, $80. We got a $286 bill yesterday in an email. No notice that we had used that much water on our door, in our mailbox. We had a plumber come out and check for leaks because we called. That's what they said to do. We have no leaks. He's sending me a letter tomorrow in the email that states that. Stuff is crazy right now. We are a 1.5 income household. We can't take a $210 increase in water, but water's something you can't live without, especially with a kid. So we called, we did the food dye test, we've done all the things. They're supposed to come tomorrow and tell us, but they told us that it's not 100% accurate, and if they don't find it to leak on their end, it's up to us to figure out what to do about that. So my question is, why now? Like, why this random 10,000 gallon spike with no notice? Should they not be notifying us? Should they be notifying us? I mean, 2,300 gallons is a lot less than 10,350 gallons. And with no leaks present from a plumber, I don't know what else to do, so that's why I came today. And I spoke with other residents. Their bills didn't change in my neighborhood, but other people across Georgetown have had the same issue of being normal 1 month, and then the next month it be 14,000 gallons, and they call a plumber, and there's no leaks. So are we truly using the $4.6 million, or 4.6 million gallons of water per day that they stated in 2025, or is there an issue somewhere in the county that needs to be found?
All right, thank you. All right, Dan Holman.
Dan Holman, Georgetown. Yeah, so this issue that Emily just talked about is an important issue that a lot of people, like someone today on the street just saw me and they said, since they sort of knew I was involved in some of this, that they had an unexpected bill. And if you look at this Facebook page, the Georgetown KY water complaints, there are a lot of unexpected spike. There's a spike issue, and City Council especially has had residents come recently. So it just seems like there really may be something out there. They just say it's toilet leaks is the most common thing. Could there be like system-wide pressure issues? Because if you look, what can cause this? If you have high pressure in the system, that can cause, for one, if you turn your water on for 5 seconds, if you're having like a high pressure day or week, a lot more water comes out of your faucet for that 5 seconds than it does when the pressure is low. So do we have 150 PSIs of pressure in the system sometimes? Are there water bubbles in the system? These things have not been mentioned yet by GMWSS as possibilities, but these are possibilities that can cause spikes. And it just seems like people in town are thinking there is some reason for these spikes, or else they're just fudging the numbers. So could you all address at some point water pressure issues? Could that be a fluctuating water pressures? So I'll just address real quick so it does seem like these options that are on the table. So the one main thing, I think these RFPs that have been put out, that Chase has said none of them are really desirable. He hardly would recommend any of them. And we got them in November. Could they just wrap up their procurement process and get them out to everybody so that everybody can know the numbers? That was the one thing that was missing from this presentation. $200 million for option A, which was where we build a water station in Frankfurt. But then the other three options, there were no numbers mentioned. Though there are numbers actually from the Northern Kentucky Water District. They have publicly, you can get that through public record, their number, I forget what it was, but it was about $100 million. So could they just wrap up this RFP process? Chase said that this shouldn't occur in a vacuum, but yet it has been occurring in a vacuum for the last 3 years. Like, this conversation has been going on for 3 years. And it's been in a vacuum, but until now. So wrap this up and get it moving on. And so then the other options that are taken off the table, reuse of effluent. So we're looking into the future. So in the future, people are reusing effluent. It's becoming more and more common. So one of the board members at the presentation was interested in that and was asking questions about it. I think it was Judge, you seemed interested in that as an option, I believe.
I asked about the volume.
Right.
That's what I asked.
So could we, yeah, so why was that just taken off the table? With the 5-mile rule, you pump your effluent 5 miles away and then get it back. Is there a point that we could just,
I believe he indicated that the Division of Water said that was not an option.
well, direct reuse is a problem.
Mr. Holman, you got just 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
So,
You
yeah,
got
so
1 minute.
direct reuse of effluent is not currently allowed, but 5-mile reuse of effluent, could that be allowed? And then the North Elkhorn Creek, they often refer to the South Elkhorn Creek, but it really, I don't know, it's the North Elkhorn Creek that flows through Georgetown, right by our existing water plant. And that's very similar in run to the Cane Run watershed. Could that be cleaned up? Not today, but within 10 years, could that watershed be approved to draw from? Has that, that's an option to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else that willing to speak for this committee here or during this work session? Anybody in the public? If not, then with none of us brought before this group, this meeting is adjourned.